I'm just gonna DM him. Well, I'm just gonna ping him on the other server because I generally can't fucking. Fucking hell! I generally cannot find them. Why in the world is blue such a problem often? Audience 17. Oh no, we lost someone. No. Very sad. I can DM I already add him, so it's fine. Anyway, I had prepared. Okay, so first off, I need to start the game. Let's get everything set up, okay? Who arrived? No idea. So, share your screen. This is the game. Oh no, never mind. That's in 5 FPS. Actually, no, it doesn't really matter. Okay, we're gonna go live. That's the game. And for those of you who never played it before, this is actually the second title screen. There's actually another title screen if you've never played the game before, but I don't know exactly how to show it because I'm using the developer version of the game. So, it also uses my personal save files for the game, so that's why it's messed up. But you know, it's fine. Have this pleasant music in the background while I set up the rest. You love the NMF soundtrack? I love the NMF soundtrack. The NMF soundtrack is based. I'm pretty sure that's why the save or persistence files on the app data for it to reset. Yeah, finding the app data on like finding anything on this computer is a mess. It's just so full. It takes forever to sort through shit. Alright. How many tracks does the game have currently? Let me go and check. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's not count this one. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41. 41 tracks! Not including all the repeats that are specific to specific scenes, basically. Also, hi Gator. That's so much. Man, sometimes it feels like it's not enough, you know? Sometimes it just feels like it's not enough. Sometimes there'll be a specific scene, especially now that I'm rewriting everything, and I'll be like, man, we really just... It'd be cool if we had a specific track for the specific scene, you know? I need you to playlist full of all of them. I think somebody made a playlist. I think it was either Ref or someone else who made an online playlist for the whole game. If I say usually play on bed, so I have it muted. Wow. Hi, Nate. I insert clever username. You want to speak, Nate? So, by the way, this is about as good a time to explain how the stage works. So, I'm on stage and I'm allowed to talk. None of you can currently talk, but if you click the hand button on the bottom, then you can request to speak. And once you do, either me or Rudra will get to you as soon as we can, and you'll be allowed, and we'll try to get you to speak. You know, you'll be invited on stage, and you can talk as much as you want. And for the first half of the stream, you can do that if you want to leave a comment really briefly, but try not to speak too often, too much. You know. for the first half, for the actual playthrough of the game, let's try to get through it as quickly as possible. Let's put it like that, so that we can get to the Q&A sessions and stuff where we can actually start discussing. Sorry about that, my phone and Facebook. That's completely fine. 30-minute, 1 hour game. Yeah, the prologue should be about an hour with full voice acting. All right. Also, hi Akiba. I tried DMing Blue, but he oh right. Oh, I see. Okay, so I guess we're waiting for one more person, and then we are good. There's voice acting? Yeah, I'll do the voice acting. You're gonna hear authentic Sedge voice acting. Doing every single voice. As intended. Just how the game was intended to be played, with Sedge speaking every single line. We were actually considering having Pink play Isaac, since he is also an aspiring voice actor, but in the end we decided to just leave everything to me, at least for this one stream. We'll see for the next ones if other people want to step up. Because I have the feeling that, especially for the next few streams, my voice is gonna get killed if I do all the voices myself. Pink is awesome. Pink does everything. Alright. So, OBS Studio 29.12, okay. Once we've got the last person join the stream, then I'm going to start the recording, read through the script, and then we can... Too big and too official, too scary. There's only 20 people! There's only 20 people, and I bet a couple of them are going to leave before the end of the stream. It's fine, though. I get it. I completely get it. 20 people are 20 too many. Honestly, true. The world is too big for more than just myself, you know? That's why I'm here, on stage, alone. Talking to myself. And to my computer. There's nothing sad about that at all. Here's a screen you haven't played at the end yet. Exactly, that's the one. And it also plays a different music. And come on. SMH. Every time I look away from the screen, the audience is different. I don't know if people are like joining and leaving or not. I think it's just my paranoia acting up. We're in a server of 500 people, so 20 plus people is fine by me. There only... the server might seem big, but there's actually only like 20-something people active in every chat. In any chat at a given time. Like, it's not... It doesn't feel that big, you know? We're just changing PFPs to mess with you. You know, that does sound something like... something that people would do with me. Hey, spoilers! No! You guys are spoiling the newbies. Sedge. Alright, tell you what. It's 5 minutes past the... It's 5 minutes past the intended start time for stream, so let's start on our own, okay? If people join later, then it's fine. Also, I just noticed that I can't pin comments in the NMF stream channel, so I guess there's no real way we can tell people the rules, but whatever. Alright. I need to do this. Okay. Time to start recording. 3, 2, 1. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sedge. I'm the main writer and developer of visual novel No More Future, which I've been working on for the last 2 years. I've been writing for the last 8 years at least. After 10,000 years I'm free, time to conquer Earth. Laughter ensues. Anyway, This is going to be a recorded playthrough of the prologue of my visual novel. Together, some people who never played the game before, and others who know it quite well. Alongside me are many visual novel readers, as well as some visual novel developers, who, by the end of the stream, will hopefully know how to. I cannot end this joke because there was supposed to be a bonk sound, and we can't do that in the stream, so we have to skip this joke. Anyway, the purpose of a stream is just to play through the game. Many have done that in the past, and I encourage you to look up their playthroughs on YouTube if you only care about reading the game. What we're here to do, on top of just playing the game and voice acting along the way, is provide developer insight into the visual novel and its development process, and effectively give you a behind-the-scenes look into crafting a visual novel from scratch. We'll explain, in as unbiased a way as possible, because fuck me, I'm reviewing my own game, what makes No More Future's prologue stand out from the rest, what it does well, what it does less well, and how one should go about creating their own unique prologue to their story. After that, there'll be a Q&A session in our audience, so everyone has a chance to ask their own questions and provide their own input on the game so far. This is a completely new experience for me. I barely prepare for what's ahead of us, and I have no idea how it's all going to turn out. Which is just par for the course of me. I mean, who didn't expect this shit to happen, but you know, we'll figure it out. Does anyone add something before we begin? Remember that you can ask for input by pressing the hand thing to go on stage. Nobody's doing anything. So, we're just gonna start here. And remember, these are the rewrites, so this is the definitive version of No More Future, hopefully. Welcome to No More Future. Is this your first time playing through the game? I wish. Regrettably, I've played it thousands of times, but I'm still gonna say yes. I see. Let's get started right away, shall we? But before that, a few words of caution. This story is a work of fiction, and it resembles real people, places, world events, and anything else as an explicitly named is entirely coincidental. This story also references topics such as death, depression, suicide or suicidal thoughts, violence, and other topics that aren't suitable for children ages 15 and below. Even if you're of age, we recommend you exercise caution if you're easily bothered by the contents described above. Take care of yourself, first and foremost. Time to begin. A dimly lit hospital room, in the midst of a fanciest hospital your family could afford. A simple bedroom, surrounded by great walls and dusty curtains on all sides. The artificial barriers lie identical cubicles all around you. They're a bit livelier than yours. About as lively as they can be in a place like this, anyway. There are no shows to watch while you wait, no games to play, no books to read, and no one to talk to. Not even your family is allowed in at this hour of the day. You couldn't listen to the other patients that lament their woes to their loved ones, sobbing and crying while holding each other tight. You haven't paid attention to any of them for quite a while. It only makes you feel worse. You're sprawled in your bed, hidden within the discomfort of your sheets, tired and silent. Your eyes are red from all the tears, and the streaks they've left in their wake are still visible hours apart. The inside of your mouth is dry as the voice of a nurse and doctors that seldom can visit you. You're a shipwreck, drifting off in the misty night, waiting for the waves to finally swallow you whole, however long it may take. You know that these treatments are meaningless, but there is no saving you from yourself. Your family trusts in doctors that they're wasting their finances on, praying to whatever God is out there that he may listen to their plight. But you who lays in his bed, who endures the painful treatments, who must bear the nightmares that come haunt you every day and every night, you outgrew hope long ago. So you lay there, alone and afraid, your body frozen as if encased in ice, your mind stuck in a loop. Over and over, you repeat to yourself the brutal truth you cannot run away from. You are going to die. Good evening there. How are you doing today? A woman suddenly appears before you, almost giving you a heart attack as the sheer volume of her voice strikes you like thunder in a storm. It's not an unexpected arrival that jolts you from your dark thoughts, of course. They've gotten used to people coming and going all the time in this forsaken place. Everything fell into a monotone routine after a year of lodging here. No. What startles you most is their voice, so starkly different from the nurses and doctors. So upbeat, so nonchalant, with a glimmer of something more barely hidden beneath the surface. Hardly appropriate given the circumstances. Hello? You there? Come on, I know you aren't dead yet. The lady laughs off your reluctance to engage in a conversation with a cheerful smile. I know I'm asking for a lot here, but you can still grace me a chat, can you? Who are you again? After many days of relentless crying, your voice sounds raspy and coarse, almost as if you were coughing. The woman smiles upon hearing you speak, seemingly delighted for whatever reason. Ah, that's much better. Good to know I wasn't too late to the party. It's kinda hard to converse with a corpse. She chuckles at her grim joke for a moment while you lay in your bed dumbfounded. Shocked, and yet morbidly curious about both her strange appearance and even stranger mannerisms. You immediately notice the lab coat that she's wearing, but just like her attitude is markedly different from those worn by local doctors. Her speech stuff is still to guess. She most closely resembles a Siamese cat, with beige fur over her hands and neck. But the more you look at her, the less similarities you can notice. You can't see her tail either thanks to her coat. You wonder if she even has one underneath that outfit. After some time spent coldly observing you, the strange lady addresses you once again. I guess I haven't introduced myself yet, huh? Sorry about that, it happens more often than I'd like. The woman extends her right hand towards you, though she likely doesn't expect you to shake it. I'm Dr. Shelley, but you can just call me Mary. I'm the head of a synthetic department of the Pandora Laboratories. Got a bunch more titles under my belt, but none quite as important as the last. Needless to say, I don't exactly work here or anything. I'm here as a visitor, and you're free to call security on me if I start overstepping boundaries in any way. But I think you should hold that thought for now. We've only just started getting to know each other, after all. You've half a mind I've thrown out right now, truth be told. You have no clue who this lady even is aside from what little she's told you, and you're certainly in the mood to entertain whatever nonsense she's spouting. However, but as you're about to raise your voice, something that she previously mentioned begins prodding at the back of your mind, like a worm digging its way into your brain. Pandora Laboratories. Synthetics. Something about these words feels oddly familiar, and candidly so, for reasons you can't fathom or guess at. You feel as though you've heard them before, but your mind could conjure up broken words and blank canvases. So, sorry for asking this, but I just realized I didn't have a chance to look up your name before I got here. The nurses downstairs gave me your room, condition, and, well, everything, really, but they never did bother mentioning about anything other than your number. And here I thought we were the ones speaking of robots. The lady's weird line, which somehow succeeds at drawing a faint smile on your face, almost makes you forget that you just admitted to illegally obtaining your sensitive data. You really should have called secure on his nut job a while ago, but you honestly don't feel like it. Not just yet. You reckon I can wait until you've given this doctor a piece of your mind? Do the doctors around here get their patients in for the strangers all the time, or are you a special case? Though there was no irony in your parched, dried-up voice, the woman laughed at her query nonetheless. My, at least your sense of humor is alive and kicking. I might have made it just in time after all. But to answer your question, let's just say I have my ways. Don't worry, I'm not going to use your private data to sell you kitchen knives or low-calorie smoothies. Unlike the workers here, I have standards. How reassuring. Oh, come on. Don't act like I'm out here trying to stab you with a needle or something. Like I already said, that's the job of the people downstairs. All I want is to have a nice conversation with someone who, for one reason or another, managed to pique my interest. Surely you can understand this. I piqued your interest? Instead of answering your question, the cat merely smiles. How about you tell me your name first, and we'll go from there? Unless you want me to leave you alone, of course. Would that be wise, you wonder? Sharing your name, and who knows what else, with this bizarre doctor you still know so little about. We don't even know who this Mary is or what she's after, nor is it clear who exactly stand to gain from this surreal exchange. And yet, what exactly do I have left to lose? It's not like privacy is all that important to you right now. Not many things are at this point. If the alternative is senseless, dreamlike conversation is an easy silence and ruinous contemplation, then for now, alright, sure, whatever. My name is Isaac. It feels weird, revealing your name so carelessly to a stranger, like committing a sin you never knew existed. Well, it's probably just you being dramatic as usual, things considered. Isaac. I see. Would that be the name your parents chose for you? I'm sorry? The cat's question takes you completely by surprise. Though you'd like to ask an explanation of some sort, the cat swiftly beats you to the punch. Have you ever noticed how little of ourselves is chosen by us in this world? Our names, our genders, our sexualities, our bodies. Even our own personalities are mostly dictated by the way we're raised and by whom. All things we never got a say in. We're born into them, molded by them, and we're stuck with them until the day we... Before she can finish, likely realizing how unsettling her ponderings have become, she stops herself. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go there. Sometimes I can't control myself and I start rambling like that. What I meant to ask was, if you could start your life anew, and this time you could choose everything about yourself, including your name, would you keep it the same, or would you change it? Your attempts at understanding her words largely go in vain. The words bounce off your head as though she spoke a foreign language. You understand what she's saying, but the meaning, it eludes you. What sort of question is that? The interesting sort? Wouldn't you agree? More like the ridiculous. Oh, come on. Don't sound so blunt. Humor me for a minute. You won't be worse off for answering an innocent question. The woman's strange ponderings cause some stir in your mind. You have no idea where this bizarre line of questioning could possibly lead. Even so, you can't help yourself indulging it further, afraid to return the dread and emptiness that preceded it. So, what would it be? And this is the first of two choices in the entire novel, if you don't count the thing at the beginning. I need to drink some water. If anyone wants to comment for a while, we have some time. Never mind, time's over. Anyway, we're going to stick with our given name this time. If you want to see what happens afterwards, which is not a lot, you can try the game yourself. No, don't worry. If you wanna ask a question right now, you can do that. Just click the hand button at the bottom of the screen, and you can do it. And you'll be invited to speak on the floor. This is gonna be the most scuffed recording. Anyway, since nobody's raising their hands, we can just continue. You would, huh? I suppose that, after living so long with your name, has become just as big a part of your identity as your actual personality. Or maybe holds a deeper meaning to you. Some fun memories associated with it. No need to tell me, by the way. Your gaze is all I need to know. Either way, names are far from the most important part of an individual. They're just there so we can assign a label to the countless faces and voices in our heads. I hope by the time we're done, we'll remember each other for more than just our names. Okay, time out. The woman raised an eyebrow at your objection, seemingly quite surprised by your visible confusion. Is there even a point to this conversation? Because I can't even smell a hint of one. Of course there's a point. And I was getting to it. Eventually. Eventually is a much longer time frame for your taste, considering you don't even know what this talk is all about in the first place. It's a little difficult to speak up, especially in your condition, but you try to articulate your confusion as best you can, regardless. I really don't understand why you're doing this, or why I'm going along with it for that matter. When people come visit me, I'm used to hearing them talk about their lives, the memories they've had together, sometimes about the awful weather outside. But now you come along and start asking weird questions out of the blue, and then look at me as I'm supposed to just nod and go along with it all. It's true your conversation so far wasn't particularly enjoyable. It was definitely out of the ordinary, for sure, but not necessarily awful. However, given what little time you have left, you can shake the feeling this discussion is an utterly pointless endeavor, unlike throwing buckets of water into the ocean. Then again, wouldn't that be true of all the conversations you've had on this bed? I just can't see the point of doing any of this. You hear the cat exhaling a deep sigh as she rests her back on the nearby wall, a pleading expression on her face. I understand. Really. I know there's a lot going through your mind right now, and that you're not prepared for this conversation. At the same time, however, I can't really afford to slow down with you. I know you prefer if we introduce ourselves better first, or if I explain what I'm trying to achieve here in more detail. I have every intention to get there, trust me. But, unfortunately, I have some questions I need to ask first, and I can't skip out on them. Time is of the essence, after all. I got a place to be, people to talk to, and plenty of work to do. I don't have much time, and, truth be told, she takes another deep breath. She addresses you once again. I'm not even supposed to be here right now. Wait, what? What does she mean by that? But then, of course, while the luxury of being late if I want, you, unfortunately, lack even that. There's no telling how much time you have left in this world, so you need to consider what you do with it wisely. We can use to have some regular chit-chat, of course, then we can go our separate ways having gained absolutely nothing. Or, you could let me ask you a few more questions, even if they're a little off the rails, and maybe we'll both come out of this a little bit better off than we started. What's it gonna be? A little bit better off. As if there's anything she could possibly do to make you feel less miserable right now. Well, you've come this far already. Might as well see if there really is a point to all this. Alright. Guess I can endure a couple more questions. That's what it takes for you to start making some sense. Excellent. Trust me, this won't take long at all. In fact, this is the very last question. For now, at least. The lady takes out a tablet from within a lab coat and makes it to write something on it. What pronouns do you use? An extremely awkward silence follows her query. Really? That's what you made such a fuss over? What do you even have to do with all this? Hey, you're the one who went off on me. If anyone's to blame for dragging this conversation on, it's you. That's probably a correct assessment, all things considered. But we don't have time to worry about that, as the feline quickly picks up the pace. Look, I know it's stupid, but no matter how this conversation goes, I'll need to file a report once I get back. Company regulations require me to list your preferred pronouns somewhere in there. Something about avoiding potential lawsuits and things of the sort. If you ask me, it's just a load of paperwork meant to give the interns something to do, but what can you do? If you really don't want to answer, I can just write, no, it's fine. You're not exactly excited by the idea of sharing even more personal data with her, and you still have no idea what any of this is for, but this is why it takes for a doctor to start talking. If you really must know, I go by the second choice! Pronouns! Hey! In hindsight, I literally don't know what I was thinking when I decided, you know what, there's gonna be a pronoun choice in the game. Anybody roll dice? We already chose to stick with Isaac, we might as well stick with he, him. I feel like that's the quote-unquote default choice, I guess. Even though everybody can just play the game and choose whatever they want. It's not really that important. By the way, anyone wants to raise their hand? I didn't see. Didn't see anybody, so we can continue. Not even a second later, she's already finished typing that down on her tablet. Alright, I'll be sure to remember that too. I'll hold you to it, I guess. You got any more surveys you want me to fill out for you? Tell me what in the world you're doing here? Usually people charge money to get their private information out like this, you know? And they do, don't they? Well, don't worry about that for now. You'll be compensated for the time you're letting me more than enough, trust me. You feel as though you're meant to be assured about that knowledge. And yet, something about the way she spoke only listed shivers down your spine. And yes, as a matter of fact, we're done with the boring part. Now we can finally get to the real meat of a discussion. Oh, great. And here I thought I wasn't going to make it past all those needless questions. The woman's gaze veers off to the side for a moment, as though genuinely remorseful. Yeah, that really took a while, huh? I apologize for that. I don't usually take this long to get all the bureaucracy sorted out, but for me, we'd have skipped over it entirely. So, since we're both very much ready to go, how about I ask you a real question, The woman leans over the railing of a bed, a sly smile on her lips. You cannot but feel slightly uncomfortable at her sudden nearness for some reason. Have you ever heard of synthetics? That came out of the blue, alright. It's certainly what you expected her to ask. Not of that excited over-the-moon face anyway. And just what in the world is she talking about anyway? Synthetics? Even now you haven't the faintest clue what she means. No? Not at all? Are they important or something? The feline smiles, almost laughs at your unpreparedness. Judging by the look on her face, she must have expected this kind of reaction. You could say that. It's a little something I've come up with, a project directly overseen back at the labs. We've been working on it for more than a decade now, but we've only started spreading awareness of it recently. It's no wonder someone stuck in a hospital for half a year like you doesn't know about it. To put it simply, synthetics are bionic constructs made of both organic parts, artificially made of course, and mechanical ones. They're humanoid androids, built to resemble and operate as if they're a real human. The revelation is underwhelming, to put it lightly. So artificial bodies for AIs to walk around in? Really? That technology's been out for a few decades at least. Am I supposed to be impressed or something? Again, she smiles. Apparently the answer is yes. It has, hasn't it? I would know. We were the ones that first came up with it, after all. You were? The woman's smile widens in response to your query, as though implying an affirmative answer. The more she looks at you like that, the more she spurs you to remember. The less you can shake off the feeling that you should know what company she's from, and what she's here for. You do. Pandora. Thought I recognized that name. You're that huge R&D company, right? Well, it's always on the news for one reason or another. My, I didn't know we had a fan. She jokingly says, while still brimming with pride. That would be us, yes. The ones who came up with all the cool things you can't do without in life. Mag tech, high-end prosthetics, advanced drones and robotics. AIs. Chronos. You interrupt them amidst a spiel, and remind the strange lady what people really know her company for. At first, the woman appears mildly irritated by the point you've raised. But that quickly changes as soon as she realizes the peculiarity in your gaze. Yep, that was her doing too. Looks like someone knows her recent history. Although, you don't seem anywhere near as bothered by it as most others. Interesting. You shrug, or at least try to show as much to the doctor. What difference does it make? I'm dying. Kinda late for me to worry about this stuff. If anything, I guess it's only fitting itself Pandora would come to talk to me on my deathbed. If I didn't already have enough reason to believe I'm doomed, this will be the hint. The doctor, or rather the scientist, is at first taken aback by your reckless statements. However, before you know it, even she's laughing along at your morbid attempts at humor. Oh, I knew you were gonna be fun. Right as I saw you. Well, it's good that I can still liven up someone else's day. Believe me, you did way more than that. And I can't thank you enough for it. I suppose it's only fair to try and reciprocate now, isn't it? She says, confidently, as she resumes her spiel from earlier. Artificial bodies for eyes to walk around, then, you said. Well, I guess you're right when you say that technology is nothing new. As far as AIs are concerned, at least. Sure, we've been able to house artificial minds in artificial bodies for decades. But what about real minds? Real what now? There's no way you heard that right, Reason. Maybe the cat keeps on talking as though you did. Human bodies aren't built to last, as you're quite clearly well aware. Over the course of time, we lose our youth, our beauty, our limbs, our sanity, and ultimately, we're doomed to lose our very lives. But machines? They don't suffer from the same issues. They can continue to operate on and on and on, and repairing them is faster, cheaper, and easier than operating on a human of flesh and bones. In theory, through adequate upgrades and maintenance, even a computer from 100 years ago continued to be useful in 1,000. While the woman drones on, you can do nothing but stare at her, dumbfounded. So every bit as unsure of what's going on as you were earlier. What does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with me? Isn't it obvious? Everything, she brashly claims, whereas her confident gaze finally meets yours. What if there was a way to transfer consciousness into a computer? What if we could just take our lives, our personalities, our memories, our identities, and place them somewhere they won't fade away in? I've been wondering about that for the longest of times. And by the looks of it, you've been doing it too. Wondering if there was a way to avoid the inevitable. To cheat death itself and live forever. You see, that's what I'm here for. That's what this is all about. That is what synthetics are truly for. Well, that escalated quickly. A faint chuckle escapes your lips as you try to process all the woman has shared of you so far. Right. Out of curiosity, how much alcohol do you drink on the way here? The cat evades your sudden jab with the finesse of a cheetah. That's a cool question. I'd say about a half a cup worth of vodka mixed with a little bit of lemon juice and garlic chips. Yeah, that sounds about... Wait, garlic chips? Hey, don't judge my taste. I'll have you know I've perfected my secret brew over many decades of experimentation. Sounds like a lot of time for trial and error. Mostly error, given her description. All of a sudden you wish two of you were just a little bit further apart from each other. Either way, it's hardly relevant information right now. Yeah, well... As fun as this conversation has been so far, I can't help but feel that, you know, you're kinda insane. The fun kind, but insane nonetheless. Sure, you guys at Pandora are at the top of your field and whatever, but this sounds like fucking nonsense. I've heard fairy tales more believable than this. If this bedtime story is this woman's idea of cheering you up, then she's far more suited to a psych ward than a hospital room. Maybe she didn't mean it. Perhaps she truly believes in her make-believe tales and unhinged science experiments. But you're tired of talking hypotheticals and miracle cures of doctors. You have been for quite a while now. And yet, right before you can say as much out loud, the scientist immediately shuts you down. Here, take a look at our latest models. Without another word, the lady hands you the tablet where she had previously written down your personal data, and invites you to take a look. There's an image plastered on the high-quality screen, of a lizard-esque robot laying motionless in a tube-like contraption. It's definitely like any robot you've ever seen. Its shape, anatomy, the way the joints are seamlessly connected to one another. It resembles a giant lizard, or maybe a wingless dragon, with its sinuous body, powerful-looking limbs, a long tail. In the darkness, that you don't know any better, you might have even mistaken it for a real human. But the illusion is quickly broken. The robot has no eyes, but large visors let you see beyond its cold, black exterior. You've never seen anything quite like this, not even faintly. At the very least, it seems like doctors lying about the android's existence. Without even thinking about it, you make a swiping motion to the screen of your finger, revealing another image right after it. It's not much, just an image or a prototype taken from a different angle, with a few lights turned on. However, it's enough to probe your interest even further. You keep flicking your fingers on the screen, moving from image to image at ludicrous speed. There are dozens, no, hundreds of them, thousands even. There are different models. Some even look more mammalian than reptilian, and some of the photos have been taken in completely different environments than the first. And then there's the blueprints, reports, articles, essays, each looking more authentic than the last. The more you see, the fewer your doubts become. These images aren't fake. This is a sort of elaborate prank, and Mary over there isn't lying to you. As ridiculous and far-fetched as it seems, synthetics do exist. You put down a tablet for a moment and turn to face Mary, whose large smile betrays her pride and confidence in her work. You wonder how long she's been looking at you like that while you peruse the tablet. And a few seconds spent reorganizing your thoughts, you finally manage to ask the million-dollar question. Do they actually work? She chuckles at your query, having likely expected you to ask at some point or another. A few more sights to the right, if you will. You do as the woman instructed, and what awaits makes your heart skip a beat. A video of one of those machines, walking around on its hind legs, ordering coffee from a vending machine, seeming little care in the world. It cheerfully drinks a beverage alongside what seems to be a researcher, conversing amiably with them, just like a human would. What a strange voice it has. It's a little different from a human's, in ways you can't quite explain. Regardless, somehow, it still feels human. The way it speaks, its tone, its emotion. This isn't just another AI, at least not a C grade, or even a B grade. It's not a completely different level from anything you've ever seen or witnessed. A level that you cannot imagine could possibly be feigned. So that's a walking, talking, and very happy synthetic. Our first real success, after decades of experimentation and prototyping. A human being, extracted and reinserted into a machine. A person that will not die, an identity that will not fade. It will keep on living, just the same as it always has. So, what do you think? Unbelievable, am I right? Unbelievable indeed. And yet it's right there, in front of your eyes. A dream, a vision taking shape and form. Although you lack of the piece of a puzzle, you start to feel the faint light of hope shining within your mind once more. And yet the pragmatic side of your brain still isn't fully convinced. It laughs and scoffs at what it sees, ever so reluctant to relinquish the fear and despair that it now knows so dearly. So you won't stuff me inside one of those shiny walking computers? Well, you seem to catch into things quickly. The way she chuckles at your remarks sends strange vibes coursing down your spine. This Mary seems to enjoy oversimplifying your work and explanations, far more so than most professionals in her line of work. You're not sure what take this intriguing quality of hers. Why? What do you have to gain? Lots and lots of valuable data, of course. Like I said, we are still testing this technology. I'm quite interested to see what effects your new living quarters will have in your life. Among other things. So she says. And yet your suspicions only grow. Where's the catch? How much will you make me pay for this? The woman is at first taken aback by your question, but ultimately laughs it off as just another joke. It's on the house, kid. Doesn't get much better than that, does it? You get a sweet new bot free of charge, and we get to study you from afar and gather all the intel we need. That's all there is to it, really. It does sound rather appealing, indeed. Nothing you'd be hard-pressed to refuse. But that can't be all. There's no way something as revolutionary, as world-changing, as life-saving as this will require so little sacrifice on your end. Your intuition keeps insisting on this doctor till there's a few baits hidden in the murky waters of her proposition. Is that all? Mary pauses, uncertain. Sorry? I said, is that really all? You swap Mary by in the corner of her lip, failing to conceal the doubt that has overtaken her. You properly settle yourself in the bed to better meet her gaze. From this angle, not even she cannot avoid a doubt that has seeped into her very eyes. It's not, is it? What else aren't you telling me? The cat sighs, in a vain attempt to make the stress vanish from her face. Probably thought it was worth a shot. She can't bring herself looking in the eye. She finally answers your relentless inquiry. Yeah, no. You're right. There is a catch. She hesitates to elaborate. You can only wait, silent but restless, as she ponders how best to explain herself. We don't know if it works. Huh? We aren't sure if a transition, as we call it, works as intended. Or at all, for that matter. What? No. You can't be serious. You showed me that video. That robot, synthetic, whatever. They were talking, moving, behaving exactly like a real person. But are they a real person? Or just highly advanced AI mimicking a real person? No. Believing they were a real person. Of that, we're still in the dark. That's ridiculous. How can you not know whether it actually works or not? What's the whole point of this technology if you can't be sure if it's real people in there or not? The tone of your voice is steadily rising, earning a few stares from the people in the cubicles around you. You can barely feel their judging stares in your frail and meekly body, invest in this conversation as you are. It's not so simple. The process is to transfer people's consciousness into the machines, the transition. It's completely unlike anything humanity's ever conceived. Impossibly hard to explain too. Hell, not even I know all the details, and I'm in charge of the whole thing. I know you probably think we're stuffing people in those androids, but the truth is that we aren't. Not even their brains. Even if they could survive in there, in time they rot as well. All organic matter decays eventually. It'd just be prolonging the inevitable. And that's not what we set out to do. The only thing we're trying to transfer from a human into a synthetic is their consciousness. Their ego, their humanity, their soul. Something that could, theoretically, survive the death of its host. And I don't mean that in the famous people live forever way. I'm being very literal here. Of course, all of this hinges on the idea that a soul really exists. That there is more to our bodies than simple flesh and bones. That there is more to our personalities than mere electric signals coursing through our neurons. That doesn't explain why we test this technology out before figuring all this stuff out. If you have any ideas on how we're supposed to do that without experimenting on actual synthetics, I'm all ears. You try to come up with some kind of answer to a seemingly idiotic challenge, but you can't. You don't have the knowledge needed to propose any alternative, especially in a weakened mental state. I know that it feels like we're throwing darts at a wall and hoping that they stick the landing, and that those darts are literally actual people. But science isn't just about theorizing and coming up with cool explanations that sound all good and nice as long as they're in your head. Sometimes you have to take risks, be bold, make sacrifices. Except you're asking a sacrifice of me. I'm not asking anything of you. I'm just presenting an opportunity, a choice. Have you ever synthetics alive today, or who they were for transition if you want to be stingy about it, knew the risks. And now, you know as well. I know that it's not safe, that it's not proven, that it's not a perfect answer to your problem. But the only way to get to the point where it will be safe, proven and certain, is through live experimentation of willing candidates. That's what we collect our data post-transition. To try and figure Israel out. To answer one of life's greatest questions, whether human souls truly exist or not. The existence of human souls, now that's something you never expected a corporation to research. Not even to an end as wacky as this. It's one of those questions you always want an answer to, but never thought you'd actually be able to answer. You ask yourself what you think the answer is, almost if on reflex. But the cold shivers down your spine, your rapidly quickening heartbeats soon convince you to seize. You try to silence a malicious feeling, hoping that you can simply forget it as though it never existed. All in vain. In the end, all attempts at processing the information presented to you end up there. With you pondering on your mortality, coming to terms with the expiration date placed on you by your brain, wondering if there's anything you can do to alter it. You resign yourself to your fate, for there was nothing more science could do to help you. But now, this new opportunity presented itself, restoring a faint spark of hope within your heart, only for it to flicker and disappear as quickly as it once arose. So, it's a gamble. You're betting on your transition, whatever it is, to actually do its job and save me. Betting my life on it. Oh, I'm not betting anything. You are. Like I said, all I'm here to do is to give you a chance. Even if it is just a shot in the dark. It's up to you whether to take it or not. But, think about it this way. If you don't accept my offer, you're guaranteed to die 100%. I've given a brief look at your file. You have good reason to look as gloomy as you did when I first saw you. You know what lies ahead better than I do. It's not going to be pretty. But if you accept my offer, who knows what might happen? Maybe you'll still die and nothing will have changed. Or maybe, just maybe, you become one of the first humans to ever cheat death itself. You don't know what to think anymore. You feel your heartbeat increasing every passing moment as you consider the woman's words. Be honest, what are my chances? It's a binomial test, really. Either you survive or you don't. We can spend all day theorizing your likelihood of success, but that's about it. Theorize. Your actual chances, either 100% or 0%, depending on the truth. The mad scientist's face alludes mere inches away from your own, her sharp pupils staring straight into yours. You find it impossible to evade her gaze, no matter how hard you try. I know it's not very credible given I'm the one suggesting this possibility to you, but if I were you, I'd totally risk it. I mean, at best, you get a new life to play around with, and at worst, you just get exactly where you would have gone had you not done anything in the first place. That's what you were thinking, too. You can't deny that your chances of survival, assuming that there are any in the first place, are higher with her plan than without. Yet still, strange, nagging feeling at the back of your head keeps bothering you. I just can't understand. Why me? There are countless people, some even in this very room, who deserve a second shot at life more than I do. I suppose you're right in a way. You suppose? What's that supposed to mean? The cat smiles, she nods at you, confusing you even further. You want to know why I'm offering you of all people this opportunity? Because I picked a folder random from a locker and happened to be yours. The woman's words steal breath from your lungs, like a sudden punch to the gut. You're fucking with me, right? That's the reason you came here today? The scientist appears a little surprised by your sudden outburst. What? Were you expecting some sort of careful consideration? Or maybe a more routine, heavily scrutinized roulette? I happened to pass by and decided to look for a new candidate of our experiments here. I chose a folder at random and happened to be yours. That's about it, really. You almost puke at her explanation, disgusted by the sheer randomness of it all. This is so messed up. Oh, really? I beg to disagree. Tell me, do you believe in fate? In destiny? In the idea that all our actions are preordained by God, the universe, or something else beyond our understanding? Yet another ridiculous, out-of-the-blue question. But you feel like you've gotten used to it by now. You reluctantly share your answer, barely suppressing the anger that it causes you as you do. Well, I guess something's responsible for landing me here at my age. You almost feel dirty saying that out loud. Your parents would definitely scold you for even thinking something like that. And yet, your answers seem to excite the woman before you all the more. Huh. So, that's a yes? Interesting. Most people just blame themselves in your position, or maybe someone else with nothing to do with it. It's nice to hear you know exactly who's to blame for landing in that bed. You're not sure you understand, truth be told. But Mary appears pleased with your answer nonetheless. Anyway, to answer your previous doubts, if everything truly is preordained, then surely me picking you at random out of all those folders is meaningful too. If you weren't chosen by me, then maybe you were chosen by the universe or something like that. I don't think it's that simple. Maybe it isn't. But that's not the point. Destiny or not, you now have a one-lifetime opportunity before you. Quite literally, if I may add. Only you can choose whether to take it or not. But why me? Why do I get this opportunity and not someone else? You're probably shouting at the top of your lungs now, if only your throat could afford that. Instead, just whisper harshly at the cat lady, your words half dying for even leaving your mouth. Why me and our child who suffers from my same condition? Some probably have it even worse than I do. Mary stands motionless by the side of your bed, once more incapable of meeting your gaze. Not even her cool facade can hide the pain and discomfort she feels. Oh dear. I've been talking too much. My voice is dying. Not even her cool facade can hide the pain and discomfort she feels as she listens to your heavy, heartfelt words. Children are a no-go. There's still countless people who've done more to earn this than I did. The people who've dedicated their lives to saving others, to help those in need, who've got something bigger than them worth living for, who deserve a second chance time and time again. And yet, they're all going to die, all the same. Death will claim their lives despite their achievements and dreams, just as it will yours. Only now do you realize the sheer insanity of it all. Of dreaming, of hoping, of living. All for what? For it all to end? Just like that? Without so much as a warning? You recall your dearest friend, whom you haven't spoken to ever since resigning yourself to your fate. Your younger cousin, who's dreamed of being an astronaut and going to space ever since he was old enough to speak. His parents, your relatives, who've always tried to rein him in because he was never going to work out. Your other uncle and aunt, who've taught you ever since you were little to do good and be nice to others, so that God may smile upon you. Your mother, who only half a year ago was yelling at you to get your act together and start thinking about the future. All the things you were promised. The foundations you spent your whole life so far building, step by step, brick by brick, in anticipation of what's to come. Only now do you realize how pointless it all was, when all it took was one turn of the wind to make everything crumble into dust. Life is so fucking unfair. You cry harder like never before, so much so that it physically hurts. Every tear that comes streaming down your cheeks hurts like burning oil. You gasp for air like a newborn, slowly, continuously, painfully. You probably look like a maniac right now, finally befitting the madhouse that surrounds you. But you don't care. It doesn't matter. Nothing does. Nothing ever did. And the realization hurts you more than the cancer ever could. Mary looks away for a moment, lost in thought, melancholic. She doesn't seem to know what to say. Perhaps she's contemplating leaving you to your fate, to run away from the sorry mess you've become. You wouldn't blame her. You get away from yourself too, if only you could. And yet, she remains, silent, unmoving, contemplating, pondering over something you can't quite grasp. Beyond the liquid curtain that veils your gaze, she remains bold and stoic, like a pillar holding the badness that is the ceiling from crumbling on top of you. You stare at her intently as your body trembles, as your lips freeze, as your eyes almost go blind from all the tears. With nothing left for you, all you can do is wait, wait, and wait, and wait. Until suddenly she turns to face you yet again, an almost malevolent smile on her face. Life is fucking unfair, isn't it? Go on, you're right to say it. It's true. Nobody will admit it, but it's true. You work and work and work, and all for what? For life to slap you in the face and call you her bitch, piling problems up on problems on your back until it breaks. What did you do to deserve this? What did we do? What is life punishing us for exactly? For existing? For daring to try and live against all odds? Doesn't it make you mad? Doesn't it make your blood boil? All these years of studying and working and doing all you can to live a meaningful life, and this is how the universe repays you? With brain cancer? You feel a need to reply, but you cannot bring yourself to utter a word. Merry voice allowed your every deepest thought, your every fear and resentment, even those you never knew you had. We didn't choose to be born. None in this world, none in this body, none in these circumstances. And yet here we are. Because life doesn't care about us. It never did. And even on the off chance that we do end up liking our time here, we live in constant fear of a day when it'll all end. Such a miserable existence, spent fearful and cowering for the whims of fate. Don't you find it unacceptable? Do you long for agency, like I do? For the power to choose your own life. To choose what you wish to do, without fear of senseless constraints like gender or age. For the power to decide if and when it all ends. The people around you raise their heads, wondering what all the commotion is about. You can hardly notice them now, fully enamored of her spiel as you are. All your sadness, all your regrets, all your despair. They all lie before you in their graceless glory, taunting you with their unbridled power. And the cat is right. They do make you mad. You know what I want to do? I want to shove my big furry fist up life's ass. Show the whole world we don't have to bow down to it anymore. That we don't have to play by its rules if we don't want to. And I know you want the same thing. That's why I'm here. Because you want me here. You try to deny yourself the opportunity of bringing other people into this, but we both know what you really want. You don't want others to steal this opportunity from you. No, you want to take it. You want to rebel against life just as much as I do. You're just waiting for someone to give you that permission to do so, to help you feel like you deserve this. Well, here I am. I want you to do this. I want you to claim what is rightfully yours. She frantically reaches for your hand, grasping it as tightly as she can of her own. I'll give you my first and final bullet. Our only shot at immortality falls on you to make it count. It's time for humanity to rise up against the universe, to finally claim our lives as our own. And if you want to be there when that happens, if you feel like you deserve more than the starry lot life handed you, your free hand, she starts reaching into her pocket, emerging a neat bundle that was only waiting for your call. You'll sign these papers. Brief break. Water. Sippy sip. My throat hurts. My throat hurts. Get a glass for jar for bonus sound effects for next scene. Bloody hell. The performance of a lifetime. Thank you, thank you. Anyway. The rest of your memories of those dark days aren't as clear. The more you try to remember, the more details escape your grasp. In your head, which should be a simple sequence of actions and events. And either way, what difference does it make to you? Dates. Isaac, I swear to God, don't do this to me. Places. Ignore the crowd. Just focus on resting. We'll take care of them. People. Bad news. She was progressing faster than we thought. When you get you prepped up and fast. Everything clashes together into a mad amalgam, devoid of substance or purpose. Does it even matter anymore? You've already made your choice, and now you'll die with it. There is one moment you recall, though. One perfect photo of your last moments, forever imprinted onto your very soul. Its details crystal clear even now. You recall a dark room, hidden far beneath the earth. You recall many faces staring down at you from windows all around, either working on computers or merely watching as you draw your last breaths. You recall deep mist, cold and damp, stalking in the corners of the room, sometimes even seeping through the glass you were looking through to tickle your skin and chill the blood in your veins. Well, perhaps it was simply your vision starting to fail you. You're in a laboratory, after all, not a haunted mansion. And in those final, decisive moments, recognizing truth from falsehood had become quite a challenge, as though reality had lost its touch on you somehow, replaced by something else. Or perhaps you were simply going insane. The cold was quickly becoming unbearable. You felt as though you were walking through a blizzard in the nude. You'd have probably laughed at that silly mental image, had you still been capable of it. Despite the temperature outside, the inside of your throat was coarser than a desert. You weren't going to last long. It was painfully obvious by now. You could lose consciousness for the final time at any point for any reason, and each time you realized that you felt that inexorable moment inching closer and closer. Distractions, distractions, distractions. You needed to find some distractions. You reached forward with your finger, as much as your body would allow, and touched the thin but sturdy glass that now separated you from the tenebrous room before you. It was remarkably warm to the touch for some reason. You felt the urge to leap forward and hug the glass with everything you had, wrapping every limb at your disposal around it as tightly as you could. But after a long struggle almost drained you of the little energy you had left, you were forced to settle with just your finger. How pathetic. How ironic, too. Only now do you realize the absurdity of your decisions. You traded your bed in the hospital for a coffin in a laboratory. You couldn't have but chuckle at the thought, as much as your body allowed you to, anyway. In truth, it was more of a deep, raucous cough than anything else. A more painful kind of exertion than you care to admit. As you tried to recuperate from her coughing fit, you spotted a friendly face peering down at you from beyond the glass. She never left your side that day, and she made a promise not to do so even now. Someone's in a good mood. That's good. They do say laughter is the best medicine. I would know. I take the piss out of my friends all the time, and look at me now, as healthy as an apple. In spite of how nonchalant she tried to appear, you could feel a certain nervousness thinly veiled beneath Feline's voice. A nervousness that she was trying as hard as she could to keep buried deep within her. Somehow she knew that you could tell. Her smile became fainter as she sat down next to her capsule and rested her open palm on top of your finger. Well, this is it. A couple of minutes of waiting, then it's all or nothing. How do you feel, kid? You made as if to answer, but you were too weak to mutter the simplest of words. In the end, no matter how hard you tried, your harsh replies couldn't pierce the transparent wall that stood before you. Noticing your struggle, the doctor laughed awkwardly as she peered into your sickly eyes, just a few steps away from total oblivion. Right. Scared, huh? I get that. Can't say I blame you. I'd be freaking out too where I am there with you right now. Her smile darkened somewhat, as if pondering on the eventuality that all this may indeed have been in vain. But it only lasted for a second. When she turned to face you once again, her face was as confident as ever, perhaps even more than it had ever been. I'll tell you what I told the others. We're going to get through this. I know you will. You're going to win this battle for all of us. And I'll be here waiting for your triumphant return from the dead. Her tone was firm but fond, and her every word beamed with an immeasurable degree of pride and confidence. In a way, she almost felt like family in that moment, like the mother or father you so desperately wished put by your side. Oh, and you can bet we're throwing a party once you wake up too. There's gonna be cake, soda, maybe a little alcohol, and all those weird party games for nerds that I can't understand for the life of me. Your treat, right? She couldn't help but laugh at her remark, stupid as it was. In your mind, you smiled and laughed alongside her. If nothing else, it was a nice thought to go to sleep on. But let's know this is your own party, Isaac. You know what I mean? You know it as best as you could. You weren't going to miss that party, of that you were sure. And if you were truly doomed not to attend, you'd still give death an ass-kicking for the ages trying to get there. The feline's ears perked up as she heard something you couldn't quite make out. She looked at the balcony up top, where her colleagues and assistants were preparing the machines for the procedure, and gave them a thumbs up. She then turned to face you one last time as she got up from her improvised seat on her tube. Right. Better get going now. It's almost time. I'll see you on this side, kid. Don't keep me waiting too long. She makes as if to go, when you stop herself at the last moment. Gently, reassuringly, she smiles at you once again. One last thing. Why I never told anyone else. One I saved just for you. I believe in you. I always will. All of a sudden, something started tickling your nose, like a feather brushing right under your nostrils, while a gentle smell of honey and sugar began to overtake you from within. You felt your hand, not devoid of all strength, fall limp on your chest as your eyes rolled upwards and your eyebrows shut tight. After that, you felt nothing at all. And that is it. That's the prologue. We did it in less than an hour too. All right, my throat is fucking dead. So now, if anyone wants to talk, now's a great time. Remember that you can ask to speak by clicking the hand button on the bottom.
Right. Since most people are a bit
Bye.
quiet, allow me to ask a question. One that I wanted to.
Right, we'll get to
So
Bohemia.
Mary is a fan favorite. And I'd like to ask what goes through your mind when you're writing her.
Well, not much, honestly. Like Mary feels very natural a character, you know? Like, it's not a character where I need to, like, ponder on everything that she needs to do. Because it's all very simple in my mind, you know? Like, every question answer that she provides feels natural, you know? At the end of the day, all she does really is say the things we all want to believe in, but are just too rational to do, you know? So, I don't know, I just treat her as any other character, you know? Anyway, next on this invite list is Bohemia. Hello.
Hello. My question is, so how many people have been turned into synthetics already by this point?
Sorry?
How many people have been turned to synthetics? So I've been saying
Well,
that wrong.
that's more of a plot question, and we can't really answer that without like spoiling things. So, I mean, it's not really like that important whether it's like this number or that number, but still, I'd rather keep this for like this section in particular is just for general thoughts on the prologue so far. You know.
All right.
Thanks for the
Well,
input, though.
that's all the questions I had. Bye.
Okay, no worries. All right. Then there's Maggie Merlin.
Okay. This is my first time hearing this story.
What were your
And
thoughts? What were your thoughts?
for me, it seems thought out. But my question would be, did she add a lot more details to the prologue? It seems for me it's some fluff to add it, maybe a little bit too much for my own taste. But yeah.
Have you
Did,
played the previous prologue?
no, it said this is my first time.
Okay. So
reading.
compared to the original prologue, we did change a couple of things, but mostly it's the same. Like for the most part, it's exactly the same. You know, I didn't feel like there was much that needed addressing, and I will go in depth about the things that we changed and why in the next section. But yeah, like in general, it's more or less the same as the current version of the story. Does that answer your question?
Oh yeah, I'm writing my own, so it's good to know.
All right. I'll move it to the audience then. Next on the request is Orion.
Yes. Oh, what? Oh. Yes.
Hello.
Okay, I need to mute here. Hi. Yeah, so I'm actually gonna ask something we've actually gone over before in chat. I think it's just need to have in public here, because what do you think substitute or well, makes for a good introduction to a visual novel?
That's exactly what we're going to be talking about in the next section. Like, next section is going to be all about what exactly works in the prologue and what doesn't.
Oh, okay.
Can you say some CPU power for me by turning off the stream? Okay, fine. But like the thing with the stream is that I was planning on showing some of the things that I meant. Whatever. We can stop the stream. And all right, we're gonna just move on to the next section if nobody else wants to give any feelings in general on the prologue. You know, like personal feelings, basically. Hold on. So we're gonna stop streaming. We're gonna shut off the program. It is still recording. It's currently recording Rimpy. We're just gonna stop the recording. And now we're gonna need to figure out exactly what we're gonna be recording. Yeah, the silence. You can use the music. So now we need to figure out exactly how do you record only the voice. Honestly, I don't know if we're gonna be putting the that thing on YouTube because that was kind of cringe, honestly. Not cringe. Cool. Sure. All right. So, in order to record only the voice, what do I do on OBS? Maybe I just like start. You have the audio capture on. I literally don't know how this works, dude. I literally don't know how any of this works. Spirit, can you help out of that? Find this button. What there is no such button. Hold on. No, don't worry, Spirit. I definitely agree to a certain extent with, like, I can definitely see Merlin's point, and I will touch on that later. Like, I don't think, like, I have mixed feelings on that point, but we're definitely gonna talk about like on the repetitiveness of some stuff, basically. I have so many plot questions, but it's about a chapter 6 thing mostly. We're gonna get there. We'll get there. Okay. Also, I literally didn't read any of the chat like while I was streaming. You need to accept the invite, Speary. I never know whether to call you Spirit or Blue. It might be an idea to have a spoiler section.
Oh, that's why I had it popped out. I'm so sorry. I'm stupid. Okay, so
Don't
what
worry.
is it that you need help with?
I want to record only my voice and nothing else, and I don't know how to do that on OBS.
As far as I can tell, OBS is just going to keep recording your default audio, even if there's nothing like visually that it's recording. But if you want to like record just raw audio, you can also use Audacity. But like you could just do it through OBS. It'll just be recording, like a black screen with your voice.
So hold on. Yeah, just a black screen of my voice would be fine. How do I do that again?
So long it should like when you tested it yesterday, the video that the practice video that recorded, it had your voice when you were like test speaking into it, right?
Yeah.
Then yeah, you don't need to do anything. Just click record, and it'll be recording, black screen with your voice.
I mean, right now on my screen though, it's showing the Rempy thing for the Rempy launcher. So I guess I
if
just
you want,
remove.
yeah,
this-
you could
the
just
source?
remove the visual source, and then it'll be a black screen.
Okay. So remove this as well. And you don't have any sources. But in theory, if I start recording, it'll go anyway.
I would think so. Yes. Let me do a real quick test on my end just to see. Remove both of my inputs. Video sources yet? Yeah, whatever. Okay, test, hooray. Wait, why did it crash? Okay, no. All right. And then Maya, leave me alone. Sorry, my cat is bothering me.
It's okay. The cat has the priority. Also, no, we're hemorrhaging audience. Oh no, we're taking too long.
I'm so
Sad.
sorry. I'm
No,
so
it's
sorry.
it's my fault. I should have figured this out earlier.
Where the hell? There it is. Okay. All right, yeah, you should be good to go just by hitting record.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
You can move to audience on your own, or I can click the button to do it myself.
I'll leave. Good luck.
Okay, thanks. All right. So, in this next section, we're going to be talking about the novel from like a critical standpoint. And the purpose behind this is that I'm trying to be objective in my own review of my work so far. And I'm going to try to analyze the story to both help developers write stories and readers understand why they like stories, And of course, we're going to try to answer some of the questions that popped up earlier that we couldn't answer. So we're not going to go too much into the plot of what you've seen because you've already seen it. So let's just jump straight into the strengths and weaknesses of the work. We'll start with the obvious strengths. The intro sequence is good. I think we can all agree on that. The intro does what not many... Wait, what? Oh dear. Add a new source as an audio input source that'll record your mic. Hold on. Let me just go check something. Okay, we're probably gonna need to restart this, but whatever. No, it does record my voice. I'm just very like low on the microphone for some reason. All right, I guess we're gonna start again. Or no, stop recording and start recording. Okay, let's start again, okay? So in this next section, we're going to be talking about the strengths and weaknesses of the prologue as objectively as possible, even though I know it kind of feels like I'm tooting my own horn, but don't worry. We're going to get to the weaknesses, and there are weaknesses. So starting off with the strengths, the intro sequence is objectively good because it does something that not a lot of VNs often do, which is it sets the mood, you know? It doesn't take long to establish the status quo, which is the first thing that you want to do in any story. You want to establish the status quo. And you'll notice that we didn't even take 20 lines to describe where we are, who we are, what's going on, why it matters. 20 lines to do all that. And after that, what happens afterwards is we don't take forever just sitting on the status quo forever. We immediately introduce a source of conflict, which is Mary. And that is basically what you're trying to do, essentially, because that's the beginning of every story. Even if you look at the most basic hero's journey setups possible, the idea is always status quo, inciting incident, start of a journey. We still need to get to the start of a journey, but right now, in 20 lines, we've established the status quo and we've already started turning the gears that will get the story where it wants to be eventually, you know? And you don't want to take too long for that because too long of an intro is going to bore your reader. You want to be quick without like skipping over stuff, you know? And that is why I think the intro is of particular interest to people. Another thing that we can immediately point to is Mary's characterization. Like we already established earlier, she introduces the conflict into the story. She's the one who introduces the elements that are going to change the status quo into something else. And she does so in a way that is very interesting. She very quickly establishes her character, her nonchalance, her sardonic vein. But mostly she just establishes her power and authority, you know? Everything she says, to a certain degree, helps make her seem like not just a character, not just another person that we're talking to, but just someone more, you know? She has certain qualities about the way that she speaks and the things that she does. None of this feels just like any other stranger we've met. You know, this isn't just anyone. This is her, specifically. And her being her is what drives the conversation forward. Because only someone who is as confident and as self-important as her could possibly get someone who is already completely dead set on the fact that they're going to die, like Isaac, to reevaluate their situation. And another thing that she does is that even though she is the one who is even though she has this power and authority, even though she drives the conversation forward, it's not like she has a monologue, you know, aside from the last thing at the end, but we'll get to that. She has a conversation with Isaac throughout. The entire prologue is just one long conversation between Isaac and Mary. And this discussion is a constant battle between them. Lots of attacking and lots of defending. What I mean by that is that this isn't just two people asking, "Hi, how's the weather? It's nice. How are the kids? They're doing fine," you know? Like this isn't just meaningless dialogue. Every line, or more or less every line, has a purpose that is trying to drive the conversation forward, you know? Why is it a battle? Because both of them are trying to seek an advantage, you know? Isaac is trying to learn the truth, while Mary is trying to drip feed it to Isaac. And that creates tension. That creates opportunities for the two to clash, which is why, oftentimes during the conversation, they have these moments where things just start getting more tense, you know? And it's not like a literal battle, you know? You don't have to imagine two people with swords going at it, you know? But it is a battle in the sense that both of them are trying to vie for advantage, you know? Both of them are looking to gain something over the other. Knowledge, understanding, power, recognition, authority, you know? And that is what, not just this conversation in particular, but every conversation in every game, story, medium, whatever, should be. And that brings us to the pacing. The pacing is very particular, and I'm sure you've all noticed it by now. It starts slow with a very, like, it starts in the first gear, just a very dry, very emotional setup for what's to come. And then immediately, from this slow start, it starts building up tension. And the tension keeps building up as the two of them get to know each other, as more elements are introduced, as they all start clashing with one another. The situation grows more and more tense. It's a battle between hope and despair, desire and fear, you know? And that culminates in a climactic finish, with Mary taking the stage, delivering a powerful monologue that shakes the protagonist and the reader to their core. And after that, everything starts slowing down. Everything starts, the brakes start hitting, and we slowly approach the final conclusion of the prologue. This is correct pacing, in my honest opinion. Because if essentially what you're doing is, by continuously ramping up the tension, you are giving the reader reasons to stay invested. Because if you stay too long at a low level of tension, or if you stay at the same level of tension for too long, the reader is going to realize that nothing is effectively happening, you know? Things aren't getting worse, things aren't getting interesting, and therefore, why even stay paying attention, you know? But if you keep ramping up the tension, if you keep introducing new elements, if you keep giving the reader reasons to stay interested, stay invested, stay alert, then by the time you reach that final conclusion where everything just mashes together and just feels like the perfect ending to everything, then they're going to really feel that way. It's not just going to be you in your head. Keep giving you stuff can lead problems in the future. If you don't know what you're doing, certainly. But that's the thing. Like, we didn't really introduce too many elements that are going to be relevant in the future, though, are there? All we did was just take the exact same themes with which we started and just run with them. Keep escalating them. Keep bringing them to their logical conclusion until it all just reached a boiling point that could no longer be ignored. And then after that, slowing down, giving the reader the opportunity to breathe in, get it all together, understand what just happened, and move on, you know? Having said that, and maybe we'll get back to it later, let's talk about something else. Antagonistic forces. And what I mean by that is every story needs an antagonist. I feel like we can all more or less agree with that. A story is composed of a protagonist and an antagonist, and these are the things that move the plot forward. And so we have a problem here. We don't really have a villain in the usual sense of the word, do we? Because when most people imagine an antagonist or a villain, they imagine some kind of evil big bad plotting behind the scenes, you know, and just doing things in the back, scheming against the protagonist. But it doesn't have to be that way. Your villain doesn't have to be someone. Your antagonist can be something. And here, I would argue, there are two antagonists. The first is death itself. And some of you might say, hold on, death is an antagonist? I mean, isn't that true of every single story out there? You know, isn't death a thing that just people have to deal with all the time. You know, characters die, death sort of like drives everybody's lives forward. You know, like it doesn't feel like death here is the antagonist, but when you think about it, death here is more of an antagonist than in most other stories out there, because we are in a situation where death is more palpable than ever. We are reaching the natural end of somebody's lifespan. We are reaching the conclusion of someone's life, and death is everywhere. Every breath could be the last. Every word could be the last. And so death here, even though we never see it, even though it's never personified, it's there. You can feel it in the thoughts, in the words, in the actions. It's what leads it's what brings the plot forward. It's what drives the characters to say and think and act the way they do. And so death, in this unseen, invisible way, is the force driving the story forward, introducing the conflict, introducing the threat, you know? And that is not all, you know? That is not the only antagonist in the prologue. There is another antagonist. And that antagonist, ironically, is Mary. Mary, I'm sure I'm not the only one who felt this, was the antagonist just as much as she was the protagonist. Mary provided not just the way out, but the source of the threat, you know? Mary portrayed herself in a way that wasn't just like, oh, I'm here to help you. She has her own secrets. She has her own problems. She has her own reasons for acting the way she does, in a way that doesn't come off as just entirely disinterested, you know? Or perhaps just not entirely truthful, you know? And that is what makes her such an interesting character to both write and read. It's because in this prologue, Mary is simultaneously the protagonist and the antagonist. She is the one who drives the plot forward, and she is the one who introduces the conflict. She is the one who provides the way out, and she's the one who provides the problems with the way out. She is the one who gives the protagonist hope, and she's the one who gives him despair. And once we reach that final monologue, everything just culminates in this giant battle between what we want and what we fear. And she is at the heart of it. And effectively, the coolness of the final boss battle is that it does kind of feel like an ending in a way. Like this doesn't feel like the way somebody talks to naturally. This doesn't feel like something you would hear at the start of a novel. This feels like something you'd hear at the end. This feels like something that like a megalomaniac villain would say when they're confronting the protagonist at the end of their journey. But instead, it's right here at the start. And Mary isn't revealing her hand to Isaac. She's not showcasing her master plan with the full confidence that nothing can be done to stop her. All she's doing is just laying the facts, you know? And I feel that is what really sets the prologue apart. Because unlike a lot of other stories that start slow and stay slow forever, No More Future just comes straight out of the gate and tells you this right here, this craziness you've witnessed for the last hour, this is what you can expect for the rest of the story. And if you really want to set your novel apart from most others, you want to push yourself to the limit, just like Mary does in this prologue. That is more or less all the strengths that we can find out of like at first glance, and all the ones that I'm going to be talking about right now. And now we can talk about the weaknesses. Because believe it or not, I sure do, there are some weaknesses here. And the first I want to bring up is actually the intro sequence. But Sedge, you brought up the intro sequence and its strengths. why is the intro a weakness too? Well, it all has to do with two words that are very controversial in the community. Purple prose. Purple prose is effectively when you describe things in a very emotional, wordy, sometimes overdone way. And you can see hints of it in a lot of VNs, some more than others. But if you look at it, the entire intro is just 20 lines of purple prose, you know? There is no real moving forward. There is no real, like, doing stuff. We're setting up what is essentially like 5 lines in 4 times the amount of time. And someone who doesn't really know, someone who's very like inattentive, let's put it like that, somebody who has trouble retaining attention might see it and think, oh dear, this is going to take forever, isn't it? And I will admit, sometimes I have been guilty of that in the past, where I will just drag and drag and drag the purple prosing for no fucking reason, just because I could. And that really is something that can kill the interest, you know? Especially if it's the first thing you do and it lasts too long. Fortunately, I've had clearly many people think that it's just the right length, you know, but there are dangers in taking too long to set up the hook of your story. Another thing that I will mention is that the way that we establish the main character, usually when we think of a protagonist in a very like general sense, the protagonist is supposed to be the character who is going to move the story forward, is going to go on a quest or try to achieve something, somebody who has a strong personality. And I know that might sound very like unfamiliar to VN readers, but bear with me. Having a protagonist that literally starts on a deathbed with no power or agency whatsoever and just completely hopeless with their own fate in life, that can turn a lot of people off, because people might see this and think, dear Lord, that's what I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of the story, or at least for the vast majority of it? That sounds terrible, you know? And so that is the danger of having a protagonist that is just weak and an intro that is just really dragged out. You can easily lose the reader's interest. And also doesn't help, of course, like Merlin points out, that the intro is just a bunch of static images without a whole lot of like changing around, you know? But in general, from a writing standpoint, you want your intro to be as fast as possible. Like you don't want you want your protagonist to not feel like a rug that's just that other characters just step on all the time, or that just needs to be dragged around everywhere. Now, how do you fix this without compromising the purple prose or the weak character? Because of course, not every story wants to start with a strong character. Some stories want to start with a weak character and have become stronger as time goes on. Well, the solution is to shift the protagonist role away from them and onto someone who can more easily fit that role in the moment. Like Mary. Like we said earlier, Mary easily fits the protagonist role just as well as she does the antagonist. She is confident. She has a cool personality. She moves the plot forward. She introduces the conflict. She's the one who retains the reader's attention and feels like she's in control of both her life and Isaac's and the plot. And so, by shifting away from the main character as the protagonist and focusing more on Mary's role as the protagonist, we can obviate to the problems which lie with having a protagonist that effectively is just too weak to actually do anything. Then we're going to talk about choices, and this is probably going to be very controversial, okay? Because visual novels are known for their choices, even though it's not it's not something every visual novel does, but many, if not most, visual novels feature choices, and here we only feature 2. And frankly, they are both questionable at best, because the problem with choices in visual novels is that it ruins the immersion. Because every time that you see a prompt in front of you, it reminds the reader, effectively, that this is a game. That this is not real life. That this is not a story that they're living. It's a game that they're playing. And there's a difference. Because when you read a book, for example, when you are right there and reading the pages, then all you need to do really is just read and flick the page, rinse and repeat. And that, the repetition of it, the fact that it's always the same, the fact that every page is fundamentally the same as the other, lends you to draw yourself in. It helps with your immersion. It lets you distract more easily from the reality, which is that you're just reading words on a piece of paper. But here, we started reading a lot of words on a piece of paper, but then suddenly we switch to a choice. And the choice reminds us that this isn't a real story. These aren't real characters. This is just a game, and we are just a player. And it doesn't help that the choices themselves can feel at least a little bit forced. Like, there are some visual novels, some of which I'll talk about later maybe, who feature choices which blend very seamlessly into the narrative. But here, the questions of what's your name, or your new name, even if it's more novel, and what are your pronouns feel especially jarring. Because they just break the flow of the story. It just feels like these big things that we have, like these big checkpoints that we have to go through before we can start the story proper. It doesn't feel cool answering the questions that we're given. It just feels like a rite of passage before the story proper can begin. It kind of feels like the visual novel is talking to you and telling you, nah, I'm sorry, dude, you're gonna have to stop right there. You have to answer this question, which is completely arbitrary, or else we can't move forward. And it also doesn't help that the choices can kind of make the protagonist feel a little weaker. And because giving the protagonist, there's two kinds of protagonists. Either the protagonist is their own character, and they have their own personality, their own history, their own reasons to behave the way that they do, or they're a blank slate, and they're just meant to be there so the audience can self-insert into them. At the beginning of the project, before any rewrites, what I conceived NMF of was as a hybrid of the two styles, where the protagonist had a unique backstory and a unique personality, but I thought that his circumstances and his train of thought, his characterization was, generic or relatable enough, rather. His situation and character was relatable enough to most people that there was an argument to be made that some people would have liked to self-insert into them, which is why I gave people the option of both choosing his first name and the name that the option of choosing another name for him, and the pronouns, and a lot of other choices that never went anywhere, but who cares? And honestly, that kind of hybrid approach doesn't work. I'm sorry. Right now, those choices are there just as a more or less just for people who want them, because some people do like the idea of naming the protagonist after themselves, and they do like the idea of having the protagonist, which is them, be referred to by their appropriate pronouns. And I'm not going to remove that, but objectively, it is kind of it is quite immersion breaking. Next on the long list of weaknesses, which we're going to be shortening up for the sake of not taking forever, is the exposition dump with Pandora. Now, before we talk about the one that we have right now, we're going to talk about the one that we used to have way back when. The way that Pandora was introduced in the original version of the story, aside from a bunch of stuff that was retconned because it literally made no sense, Pandora being the company that made Isaac and that made synthetics rather, is that the way it introduced was, oh, Pandora, it's that company that did this, this, and that. They're famous for this, this, and this, and blah, blah, blah. It was an exposition dump, fundamentally. It was just the protagonist taking the opportunity to just dump a lot of information on the audience just so they are up to speed with what's going on. And even though it wasn't particularly long, it still struck a nerve with me. because no, I'm talking about the prologue. I'm talking about how Pandora was introduced in the prologue, in the old prologue, and it just sucked because it just felt like the protagonist was talking to himself, and the protagonist doesn't want to talk to himself too much, really, especially when it comes to delivering information. You never want to tell your audience that this is how the world works. It shouldn't come off as a result of just a character talking to themselves or a character just explaining things with a long-ass paragraph to someone else, because that's going to be boring. Just like the lessons that you had in school where the teacher spent an hour explaining about this, and that to the students was boring. Having a character go uninterrupted explaining a concept that you didn't even know existed until 2 minutes ago is just not good. So how do you fix this? Well, instead of making this a lecture, you make it a conversation, which is why in the rewrites, we introduce Pandora another way. We have Isaac introduce Pandora in general. Then Mary takes the opportunity to go to explain a little bit more about our company. And she doesn't just say, we did this, and this, and that, and that's that. She introduced it almost as a humble brag of sorts. She used the opportunity to talk about her company as a way to boast over Isaac. She wasn't just telling the reader about what they do. She was also using it as a way of establishing power over him, just like we said earlier. And then, instead of having her touch on the nasty things that her company did, which we're going to touch on more so in the next chapter, we had Isaac bring them up. Suddenly, she's not attacking, she's defending. Isaac is the one bringing up this thing. Isaac is the one logically continuing the conversation. And the fact that the exposition dump is mitigated by having it be shared by two characters who are using it as an excuse to either show power over the other or insinuate doubts on the other's credibility, is what makes it feel less like an exposition dump and more like an interesting tidbit of information that's going to be relevant later. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, it is still an exposition dump, you know. You can have good exposition dumps, but have them still be exposition dumps. And you want to try and limit exposition dumps as much as possible. You never want to front load too much information all at once, unless absolutely vital, like in this case. When you do them, like I said, you try not to make them happen as lectures. Try to make them happen more so as conversation or debates or discussions and so forth. Lastly, we are going to be discussing a personal quirk of mine, which is the sometimes excessive narration that you sometimes see. And this is something that I have been especially guilty of before the rewrites, but even now you can still feel it. Sometimes the narration just goes on for way too long. Sometimes it repeats way too often. Sometimes the same concept is brought up again and again and again in a lot of different ways, just for the sake of having something to say. And while some of it can be chalked up to the writer's personal quirks, which you should still try to mitigate as much as possible, part of it is also a result of just trying to preserve the pacing. And what I mean by that is that you don't want your novel to just be dialogue after dialogue after dialogue after dialogue, because that can feel tiresome after a while. Because there are pauses in between people talking. There are moments of reflection. There are moments of description. And you can just skip over them when necessary. These moments of narration in between dialogue lines serve a purpose, which is to slow down the pace so that it's not so fast that the reader is just no longer understanding what's going on. But at the same time, you don't want to overuse them to the point where the story crawls down to a halt and there's a 10-minute gap between one dialogue line and the next. It is definitely a very thin line to walk between what is essentially a story that goes too fast for its own good and one that is too slow to generally be enjoyable. Personally, I would say that the average writer, both for caution's sake and just to get themselves used to it, should usually err on the side of more dialogue than narration. But try to keep them more or less in balance, which is not to say 50-50. It definitely depends on what you're trying to achieve. Sometimes you want to slow down the pace down to a crawl, and therefore you want to use a lot of narration. Sometimes you just want a conversation to flow smoothly, and therefore you don't want a lot of narration. In general, I would say that a line of narration every once in a while to describe things that you genuinely can show in the VN medium, or that you can't because of budget constraints, for example. For example, we don't really have sprites for characters blinking or tilting their heads a little bit, and you probably shouldn't do that, because that's going to cost you. So for small changes like these, where you want to show a character doing something but can't do it on screen, the narration can also help in that regard. But of course, it can definitely spiral out of control, and God knows that before the rewrites especially, this was incredibly evident. Now, less so, but somebody who prefers faster stories can definitely look at the current amount of narration in the prologue and say, this feels way too slow for me. And that was everything that I could sum up in my honest words. I hope that this felt objective enough to listen to, and not just a lot of humble bragging and patting myself on the back, So if anyone else wants to bring up any more strengths or weaknesses of the prologue that they've noticed or want to talk about, then now's the time. Floor is open. I just read a contract to connect the dots to the main beats. How do you do that, Sedge? Great question. Great question. It definitely depends on what I'm trying to write. Some scenes require a lot of planning ahead because you want to make sure that you're only feeding the audience the right bits of information, and only those bits of information, and you're not implying things that you don't want them to see. Because God knows if you're trying to write a serious story, people are gonna see lines where there are not even dots. God knows that the theory crafting channel in this server is pretty much like that, so most of the time. But in that sense, other times a conversation is just a conversation. Sometimes you just want characters to talk to each other, and therefore you just let your keyboard go and write whatever you want. But in general, I would personally advise against completely turning off your brain while you write, because that just lends you to coming out 2 years later thinking, oh shit, this all needs to be rewritten. Oh my god, what did I do? Do you know for the start the ending of your story? Absolutely. I knew the start, I knew the ending. The problem was the middle. And not knowing how the middle was going to be is what caused all these rewrites to be necessary in the first place. Well, partially at least. It definitely is a lot easier to come up with the beginning and end compared to the middle. For most writers, at least. Outlines can be your friend. Unfortunately, I don't know how to write, and God knows I never learned how to write outlines either. So, yeah. Anyone wants to join the floor? Rewrites are inevitable. Well, true, but you need to consider how often you have them. I had an instance, for example, of about 5 years ago. I started writing a fantasy book, and I had a cool idea for it, and at some point I would like to go back to it because it's dear to my heart. But I wrote the prologue, and at first I wrote it in Italian, and then I translated it to English, and then I rewrote it a bunch of more times, and then I started writing the chapters after that, and then I went back because I had different ideas. There comes a point where rewrites are just happen too often. Especially when you're releasing a story to the public. I wasn't. I was writing for my sake. But especially for something like NMF, having too many rewrites, especially too quickly one after another, can definitely turn some people off. I've had some people tell me that they weren't going to check out NMF for a while because it felt like they've kind of been betrayed almost by the rewrites, because they got used to the version of a story as it was before, and now it kind of feels like I'm tracing all over that and saying, actually, the story was this all along. And that is a genuine point to raise. That is a genuine fear that somebody who wants to do rewrites should have, and one that should, in theory, convince most writers to write well the first time around, so that the rewrites are less important and less necessary when eventually the need starts arising. We're going to take a request from Spirit.
Alrighty, so what I just wanted to say specifically to help with Magi Merlin, at least the way that I write whenever it comes time for me to write is I define a start and end point, which Sedge already said that he did, which is good. And then I break the story down into larger elements, like major arc concepts. Like arc 1 is this event. That's like the culmination of that event, like a world war or whatever. And then once I've got like the arc set up, then I fill each space in between those arcs with smaller and smaller events until it flows into a story. So it's like some people maybe that won't work for somebody, but the way I see it is you create big events and smaller events until you've got a story. And that's all I really wanted to say.
Wow, people have methods. I just have madness. Anyway, thanks for your input.
Yep.
Anyone else who wants to give their own thoughts? By the way, we didn't really introduce all the cool developers that are with us tonight. We have Spiri and Akiba, who work on Home Somewhere Else, which is another furry visual novel. We have Ohiro and Argolaf, who work on their furry visual novel, Nevin. And we have Gator, who works as proofreader now for a bunch of different projects. And I don't know if anyone else here is a secret developer on stuff, but those are the ones that I know personally. Also, Magic Merlin is working on a VN, and I'm pretty sure Orion is too. So, anyone else who wants to pitch in with professional opinions on what we discussed so far, or give their own share their own thoughts on what worked with the prologue and what didn't? All right. In that case, we can probably just start the general Q&A. So, no longer just confined to the prologue. If there's anything writing related that you want to ask, or anything reading related, then you're free to ask, and I'll try to answer the best I can. How much should translatability be accounted for when writing? I can see it's not really foreseeable, but the sad reality is that not everything is translatable, and you shouldn't really account for it when you write a story. Because already writing a story is a massive undertaking, especially if you're putting an effort into it. And there are marked differences between writing in a certain language and writing in another. And sometimes your story is just gonna work best with a certain language compared to another, whether it's because you're more accustomed to it or because it just works better with the kind of story you have in mind. And we're not just talking about translatability to other languages, for example. Like, The House of Leaves is a novel that is just so fucking insane. It could never be translated to a film or a cartoon or anything, because the fact that it plays the fact that it's a novel in a sense, and that makes it difficult to translate, not just to other languages but also to other mediums. And unfortunately, that's just how it is, Sometimes a story is just perfect only in one way. And if that is what you're going for, then you just have to deal with it. And sadly, other people are just gonna have to deal with it too. I'm sorry. If I don't know if NMF has worked in a team or not. I see. NMF has definitely worked in a team. You can see that in the server. We have there's me, the main writer. Then there's an artist, 3 musicians, 2 proofreaders / editors, and then there's a Android, iOS, etc. port maker. There is. Hold on, my Discord is fucking up. What is going on? We have a moderator, and there's also a kind fellow who helped with this animated Steam trailer for the game, and is still on the team for now, you know. And I think that's everything. Okay. All right. I don't know what in the world is wrong with Discord. I clicked on the developer channels, and for some fucking reason, everything crashed or something. I have no idea. Anyway, yeah, we have a pretty big team, and some of them work pretty much like full time, like Rudra. Others are more like others on commission, and others are more so like occasional help. But they're all indispensable to the team and the game. Working a team is definitely helpful, but it does cost you. Anything else anyone wanted to ask that I can see? You're not affordable, Rudra. You're perfectly fine. And I'm sorry that I can't pay you as much as you deserve because you do fucking everything. How do you keep yourself in check regards to what you do and don't add into NMF, i.e. not adding useless plot threads? Wow, that's a great question. I wish someone would have asked that 2 years ago. Yeah, part of the reason why these rewrites were necessary is because old Sedge, as a result of not knowing what the fuck was going to happen in the middle of the story, decided, you know, I got some cool ideas. Let's just include all of them. All of them, every single one of them. And therefore, I started pretty much every single idea that I had, including ones that I generally didn't really wonder how the hell would I even get to those. I started putting in, and it led to this situation where I was stuck with all these plot threads, which were just completely useless and were never going anywhere. And I knew that they were never going anywhere because I completely given up on the ideas themselves, or I just completely forgotten what I was going for, you know? And that was the point where I realized, you know what, we need to rewrite things before people start generally getting invested into the shit. As as for a general rule as to what you want to do and don't do into your novel, then you should ask yourself this question. Would your novel be any worse for not having it? And if the answer is no, then it's probably not worth adding. A general rule is that you don't want to write what you don't have to write. If the story that you're trying to write doesn't require a specific thing to happen, then it's probably not worth putting in the first place. You want every single thing that happens on screen to have meaning. You want every conversation to have a purpose. You want everything to lead somewhere else. And so, when you are coming up with a very cool idea that nobody else has ever done and you really want to put into your story, you have to curb your enthusiasm for 2 seconds and genuinely ask yourself, okay, but do I have to do this? And unfortunately, that is a very sad question you need to pose yourself. Because as a writer, you do want to do cool shit. You do want to come up with cool scenarios and unique things, and sometimes not everything can fit at once, and you just gotta deal with it. Anything else? How do you know what feelings you want to show in your visual novel? What questions you want to ask and what potential answers you can give to them? Well, the entire visual novel started, or was conceived rather, as a result of me having a fairly dramatic existential crisis of many years ago, where I started suddenly wondering about started having nihilistic thoughts and pondering on the sadness and a genuine fear that comes with the idea that we're just going to disappear and there being nothing after the afterlife, which is just, I mean, it's not what I personally believe myself. It's not what I want to believe, rather. But especially if you don't believe that's what happens, it can be very debilitating. And it got to me in a very personal way. And I eventually overcame this bout of depression. But the feelings that it evoked in me, the things that I learned as a result of that experience, those are the things that I decided to put into NMF. Those are the themes that I wanted to explore. Those are the questions I wanted to pose. And it's not just that, of course. The novel is more than just a question of the afterlife and the soul and all these things. There are other plot points which also relate to my own experience as an individual, etc. But in general, the idea is that you want your themes to be connected to one another. You don't want the novel to be about this and also that. You want a novel to be about this, and because of this, that, etc. You want to start with a core theme and then divulge into different avenues that are connected to it. Did you change your premise often? No, actually. I actually had a very the premise I knew exactly. From the moment that I conceived the idea, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew exactly what the story was going to be about. And even though I didn't know all the details, I was confident with the idea that I had in mind, which is something that I think every author needs to be confident. I see way too often people with no ideas asking other people what ideas they should have, which is something you really don't want to do as an author. If you can't, there's a couple of persons that I've seen in other communities, which are basically start off a project and then they have a very vague idea for what they want to do, and they come along asking for opinions, and then they get some people opinions, and then they come back a couple months later with basically the same idea with a couple of changes, and then ask again for opinions, and the cycle continues and continues, and in the meantime they haven't really written anything. And that's what you really don't want to avoid. You don't want to be you don't want to be at the point where you are not confident with the story, where not even you know what kind of story you want to tell. Before you even approach other people about your idea, before you even start calling yourself a writer, you need to know what you are writing about. which is not the same thing as saying you need to be an egocentrist that doesn't really ask other people's opinions and doesn't care about anyone and just does his thing and doesn't listen to anyone. That's also a pitfall. You can easily get to the point where you are just so full of bullshit that you don't realize just how deep you're surrounded, you know? And there is a middle ground between them. You want to have the ego to be confident in your work, the creativity to come up with something original that only you can come up with and only you can do justice to. And you need the humility to listen to other people's opinions when you're not sure about specific details or how to approach specific things, and want more or less expert opinions on the topic. And also you want to listen to your audience, both the good and the bad, which is part of the reason why I do streams like these, is because I want to listen to my audience and hear what they genuinely think. Even the comments that are mean or can come off as mean often come from a good place, and there is truth in everything, even if only a little bit, even if it's mean as shit and it breaks your bones in your body or whatever. So yeah, be confident in yourself and have a solid grasp of what you're trying to write before you start asking for people's opinions on it. So is that plot point removed from the rewrites? It is changed slightly so that it makes slightly more sense, but otherwise it's the same. Any other questions? Do you keep writing notes by this point? No. Oh god, no. I wish I learned how to take notes, but no. I don't take any notes because I am stupid, and I just think that I am going to remember everything that I come up with. Spoilers, that doesn't happen. Please, for the love of God, if you're a writer, just fucking write your ideas down. Don't do like me. We're all just humans. Some of us are humans with a Y and 2 U's. Oh no. Poor Roger being a walking encyclopedia for me. I mean, technically, I am also a walking encyclopedia. In fact, I have the job of like updating Rudra every time I come up with a new plot point, and I'm sure Rudra at this point has completely lost his mind by now. Sometimes you discover ideas that come up in the constantly in your head. I mean, a mark of a good writer is that they have a lot of ideas, but not every idea needs to be worked on. You know, I have a fuck ton of ideas for stories that I'm never gonna write, and they're all valid, but to a certain degree, a lot of those ideas, other people could just as easily, if not better than me, write down all the same. Like, none of them feel personal the way that No More Future does, for example. No More Future to me feels like the kind of story that isn't just personal to me, it's personal to others. It's not just a story that deserves to be read, it's a story that deserves to be written. And so that was the choice in that was the reasoning behind shifting focus away from another project that I was working on to work on this, because I looked at it and I compared all the other ideas that I had in my head, and I realized that this was the closest I had to something that was truly unique and that only I could do and no one else. And generally, as a writer, you want to prioritize those kinds of projects, because otherwise everybody's just going to come up with the same thing, as clearly it has happened in this community. I'm going to get killed for that. But you know, what can you do? Do programmers write you back about your dialogue? Because they're kind of more reading it carefully in development Rempe than I was Rempe. I am the developer, I'm the writer and the programmer. So I do everything myself. Audio question: are the audio encoding bugs were fixed for the new build? Nope. If there are bugs with those things, we haven't addressed them yet. Frankly, some of our musicians have we've had an easier time contacting than others. We're hoping to get everything sorted out before we release the full build, but In terms of the audio, the things that are going to be new to this build, which unfortunately is going to be released tomorrow at this point because there's just so much stuff that still needs to be done, is the new chapters, the new art, the new music, but not too much in terms of actual bug fixing on the audio front. How will the story end? You wish you knew. Those are questions that nobody can genuinely answer. Not even me. Who knows? Yeah, we can probably stop the stream for now. Thank you all for coming, and thank you all for your input. Even those who didn't provide much. It was a great time. I'm grateful to have spent it with you guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Or whenever, actually. Bye!